So by now, you should have done some thinking around the style of your podcast, the content of your first episode, and the idea of who your host character or persona might be. Now we need to talk about the nitty-gritty stuff, the tech. How do you actually do all of this? So before we can even think about editing, we need to think about your recording equipment and how you will record this audio. Microphones are obviously the best choice because they do make a clearer sound, but a lot of people don't have access to microphones when they first start. If you are interested in purchasing one, if you do have the means to, there are some really easy USB microphones that simply plug into the bottom of your phone and allow for a clearer sound quality than your phone microphone would on its own. But that being said, Fluff just uses our iPhone microphones because they're high quality microphones. The microphone in an Apple product has been developed and is much better in the more recent years than it has been, and that's probably the same on lots of different phones. In a group, you might want to try using all different types of phones and see which one you prefer the most. The thing about a mobile phone microphone, though, is that it is intelligent. So it picks a hierarchy of sound when recording. So when you are using voice, it will pick the voice over the sound of the background to focus on. But that might be difficult then to record background noises or different types of noises that you want to impose into your radio drama or to overlap into the background. So just think about that when you're thinking about the types of sound you want to use. It is very good for chat. So what is sound? Sound, as a word, refers to the environment, refers to anything that makes a sound, which includes voices, but also includes any sort of environmental sound. If a car were to drive past now, that is sound. Audio, which is what a podcast is the act of listening. It is detectable to the human ear. So sound waves are felt and experienced, and it's important that you understand the makeup of what is going into your podcast in terms of sound and audio quality when you want to think about how you want to structure it. When recording, be aware of the environmental sounds. That's really important. You need to try and record in different places to hear the backgrounds. So a really good example of this is there's an artist called Alvin Lucier. I will put this in the comments below to the YouTube link to it, who does an installation called I Am Sitting in a Room. He starts by just recording his voice in a room saying, I am sitting in a room. He then plays that recording aloud in that room and records that recording. And he does that on repeat until it's completely warped and you can no longer hear the words. And what he's doing is recording the room, not just the human voice. So it's a really good way of visualizing how sound is different from audio, and that's a really important thing to understand when you're doing a podcast. Remember that the microphone is what listens, not your ears. So always check before you start. Play back what you've just said to see if the sound quality is okay before you do it all the way through. You've listened with your ears, you think, oh, this is going to sound great, and then you realize you've got an hour's worth of content you can't use. So what things to be aware of in your environment? The fridge. You might not hear it in your everyday life, but if I record in my kitchen, I can hear it kind of subtly underneath everything. And especially if I'm piecing that together with another piece of audio, I will notice the difference. As I said before, streets, people walking around, upstairs neighbors, downstairs neighbors, floor creaks, sitting on a squeaky chair. These are all things that will become really obvious to you when you start editing. Top tip that I was given by another podcaster: record yourself under a blanket. That creates a sound studio effect so you don't get extra reverberation off of hard surfaces that makes echo later on. Recording in hallways of flats is a really difficult place, just as an FYI before you go and do that, because the room is so cavernous generally that it makes so much echo sound. If we were all millionaires, we would all have padded studios in our homes, and that would make for the best sound quality possible. But for now, a sheet and your recording device could be enough. So now I'm just going to show you how to start your editing, and we use Audacity program for our editing. So first you need to get that program. You need to start by searching on Google for Audacity, as you can see here, and clicking on the top program. The page will look like this, and there's two options to download it for Windows or for Mac. I have a Mac, so I click on the Mac download, and it brings me to this page. I select the best option, and it should come into my downloads folder. Once it's been downloaded, I can find it here in my applications folder. It's right there at the top with the two headphones over some sound waves, and that's Audacity. This has opened up one that I was already working on, but I'm going to start a new project for you. So to start, we need to transfer our sound files into Audacity that you've recorded on probably on your mobile phone. To do so on my Mac, that means that file has opened up in my iTunes. So I'll find the file and drag it across into Audacity. You might, on first instance, get this error message that says that this file is not in the right format, in which case I'm going to have to change the format of the file on iTunes. And I can do so by going up to the top, clicking on File, Convert, and then I want to select the WAV version or the MP3 version, depending on which is available to you. If you can't figure this out, there's lots of video tutorials on YouTube for how to convert to MP3 for iTunes. Once it comes through, you'll get this warning. You want to click yes to that option, say okay, so it keeps the file. It'll import, and once that's finished, you will see your recording there, your raw recording. So in this tutorial, I'm just going to take the time to talk you through some of the different tools that you will use. You'll notice that I'm using the cursor image at the top. When I first start, I'm going to click the magnifying glass and show you how you can make it expand and get smaller. This is really helpful for seeing the sound and seeing individual words. So if, for example, I want to edit out a time where I've said or I've forgotten a word or said it wrong, I can see the word individually, highlight it, and get rid of it. In order to play the audio, I'm going to use this green triangle. Instead of clicking the play and the pause at the top of the page, I click the exact time in the file and it will play, and then to pause it so that I can be as accurate as possible, I actually use the space bar to pause it instead of moving my cursor to click the pause. I always need to make sure that when I want to highlight and remove a section of the track, I'm on the cursor image, which looks like the eye, which means I can just drag and highlight as shown, and I can cut or paste or delete anything right there just by either using the edit file or using my keyboard short forms, whatever you're comfortable with. It would be the same on any other software that you're used to using. If you've only got one track, as I do here, you're going to need to split the clip. So you're going to make sure that you've clicked on this audio clip, go up to the top and click edit, and then go to clip boundaries, split clip. At that point, a permanent line will appear, and you can use this symbol, the two arrows, to move your audio along. This is quite helpful if you have music playing underneath that you want to hear for a section, or if you're using two different audio files at a given time. The final one I want to show you is the envelope tool, or envelope, depending on how you pronounce it, which makes the audio bars show like this in purple and allows me to increase and decrease the audio volume in certain places by selecting as many places as possible. So this allows you to play with the volume with really, really specific precision levels. Once you've mastered these tools, you might want to get a little bit crazy with it and add some effects. So it's very simple to add effects. You just go up to your menu bar at the top and there's a load of different options for you. So amplify would mean making it louder. You can duck the audio underneath, so literally ducking underneath something. You can explore all these options, fade in, fade out. There's lots of different things for you to try, and I would just suggest having a play. I don't even know what all of these can do. I've learned by doing, so that's the best way for you to learn as well. So sometimes when you import audio, particularly music, you're going to see that it has two sections to it as opposed to one. And that means it is in stereo instead of mono. You can see those words written on the side. So stereo means that it plays in two different ears or two different speakers at different volumes. You might notice this when you listen to music. In order for you to edit those together, you might need them to be the same type. So I'm going to show you how you could edit a stereo down to a mono or a mono up to a stereo as necessary. So all you have to do is highlight the clip and go up to the menu bar and select mix and then mix down to stereo. When you have two tracks like this is when you are likely to utilize mostly your 2 arrow option, moving your track along to where you want it to play. It's important to think about if you're adding music to your podcast, you do need to make sure that it is royalty free. Otherwise, you can get some big fines for playing different artists' music without their permission. When you've finished your track, you want to have it as its own MP3 file instead of as a project. If you save an Audacity file, it will save as the project, not something you can listen to. So then you want to click File Export, and you can decide on the format you want it to be in. You can put a title to it. It's got all these options that you can fill in here, and it will just come through as a file wherever you've saved it. The last thing I want to show you quickly is how you might edit together audio that's been recorded in two different places or record an interview remotely. So we do this through Skype, which means that we can see the person we're speaking to while we have headphones in and hear them, but we're recording our speaking voice live in the room using our own mobile phones, and we might get the person on the other side to record their voices using their mobile phones. And then using the Skype interview, which can be recorded through Skype and downloaded as a video file, we can match up the question and answer. It's important to remember when doing this that you cannot speak over top of each other, or it will be impossible to edit together, and it will probably make your video freeze. So you can see here that I've got this stereo track, which is my Skype recording, and our questions are in the audio track, the mono track up top. What I do in order to properly hear putting these together is you can take the option to mute one track at a time to hear where you're at. You want to be cutting and using your clip boundaries to get rid of sections so that you have only one track playing at a time. There are lots of other ways of doing this, but this is the one that I found most straightforward. So now for your task. In your last video, you were asked to record yourself speaking about yourself and about your interests. And I'm going to ask you to use that audio now on Audacity to edit together a mini introduction of yourself for your first episode of your podcasts. Think about how you might want to incorporate sounds, music. Think about if you want to practice editing it together with another of your course mates. You might want to try answering each other and using it on those different lines as I showed you just a moment ago. And I want you to edit it together and package it like a podcast. Good luck.